Good afternoon, everybody. This is Randy Bowman with the City of Palm Desert. Welcome to community meeting number 2 for the Haystack Road Traffic Calming and Safety Study. Today, we're going to give you some updates and some information, and once again have a lot of good dialogue and feedback from the community. This is the second of 3 community meetings that we are holding with the community. Today, I'd like to acknowledge that our Mayor Kathleen Kelly and Council Member Savvy Jonathan are present on today's meeting. Thank you all for being able to be here today. And as we conduct the meeting, we'll also be continuing to admit folks from the waiting room into the meeting. So today, as I said, we're going to give you an update on the work that our consultant has done since the last meeting in May. We're also going to share with you some prospective tools in our toolbox for addressing issues that we have heard from the community about. But before we get into a pre-recorded presentation from our consultant, I just would like to encourage everybody, if you've been to the website and registered your email address, thank you very much. If you've not had the opportunity yet to go to the project website, please go to it. It's www.haystackroad.com and enter your email, and you'll be entered into the list for future project updates as the project continues. Also, we certainly ask, talk with your neighbors about the project, get them excited, get them engaged. We could use your help in broadening the involvement by the Haystack Road community. Also, I would like to convey to the community that if you haven't been on Haystack in the last few weeks, then you've missed the first 3 speed feedback signs that the city has installed. We installed them first for westbound traffic, and beginning later this week and into next week, we're going to be installing 3 more speed feedback signs for eastbound traffic. And lastly, we are coordinating with our police department, who has been conducting speed enforcement. And at the next meeting, we will provide some insights that we are getting from our police department. So if I have done my technological duty correctly, I'll click on this pre-recorded PowerPoint, and we will listen to our consultant. We pre-recorded it because we're going to post it to the project website for the folks that couldn't make today's meeting, so they have an opportunity to stay engaged and stay up to speed with what's happening with the project. At the conclusion of the pre-recorded presentation, we will then engage with the participants at the meeting today, get your feedback, get your input on what the consultant is proposing. We will take your feedback along with a survey that we will be posting to the website at the end of this week or early next week to get your continued feedback. This is not a one-shot deal. As we've said in the first meeting, we will continue getting and encouraging feedback from the community as this project evolves and we become more informed. So stay involved. We're excited and welcome. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Charlie Schwinger, an engineer with KOA Corporation. Residents who live along Haystack Road and in the adjacent neighborhoods have expressed concern to the City Council about traffic speeds and safety along Haystack Road. The city has requested KOA as a traffic safety consulting firm to help find solutions to make Haystack Road safer. The safety study includes Haystack Road between Highway 74 and Portola Avenue. Our objectives in the study are to address high travel speeds, intersection safety, pedestrian safety, and bicycle safety. You, the community, have 3 formal opportunities to help guide the study. In our first public meeting, the Haystack Road community provided input on traffic speeds and safety concerns. KOA has conducted field observations of the street and traffic and analyzed accident experience and traffic data, including speed, traffic volumes, lane width, corner sight distance measurements, lighting, and the use of the existing parking and bike lanes. In today's meeting, we hope you will provide input on ideas for possible solutions. In the third meeting, you will provide input on the recommended solutions. Following the community input, the study will provide recommendations for improvements and will be presented to the City Council for direction and funding. The City and KOA will be contacting the Haystack Road neighborhood through social media, emails, and postcards. But we need your help to get the word out to your neighbors. During this entire time, we will have a website available where you can provide additional comments at www.haystackroad.com. The website will be a way for those who cannot attend the meetings to stay informed and remain engaged. Our study schedule is set up to integrate traffic and engineering development of improvements with your input, concluding in September. Today, we would like your input on identifying preferred solutions. In September, we would like your comments on the recommended improvements. Initially, we knew that Haystack Road has one through travel lane in each direction, with a center turn lane, parking lanes, and striped bike lanes for part of the corridor. It is classified as a collector street in the city's general plan. It carries 4,700 vehicles per day, or averaging about one vehicle every 8 seconds during the heaviest traffic hour of the day. The posted speed limit is 45 miles per hour, but about 1/3 of the vehicles travel faster than 45 miles per hour. There have been 9 vehicle collisions in the last 11 years. In our last community meeting, you informed us that traffic speeds on Haystack Road are too high. It is difficult to cross Haystack Road safely on foot. Pedestrians have to walk in the street along some sections of the road. It is difficult to safely back out of a driveway. Intersections are hard to see at night. On-street parking is needed on the south side of Haystack. Solutions that were suggested included installing stop signs, lowering the speed limit, installing speed feedback signs, constructing sidewalks, and constructing one or more roundabouts. Our field work and analysis confirmed that speed limits are set consistent with actual travel speeds. 90 pedestrians were counted crossing Haystack Road in a day. 70 bicycles were counted along Haystack Road in a day. Intersections are dark at night. Sidewalk is missing along portions of Haystack. Intersection corner sight distance is inadequate. Driveways spaced at an average of 100 feet are not compatible with 45 mile per hour speeds. The photos illustrate the lack of sidewalks and the restricted intersection corner sight distance. In response to what you told us and what we confirmed, we assembled a toolbox of potential strategies to improve intersection safety, manage speeds, and provide improvements for pedestrians and bicycles. We identified 6 tools that could be applied to improve safety at the Haystack intersections. Those include install always stop control at intersections, install stop signs with LED flashing borders, add advisory speed placards to crossroad and side road warning signs, trim vegetation that interferes with corner sight distance, provide intersection street lights, construct one or more roundabouts, which reduce speeds, reduce accident severity, provide equal access for cross-street traffic, provide safer street crossings for pedestrians, and maintain traffic flow on Haystack. We identified 4 tools for speed management: placing speed limit markings on the pavement next to speed limit signs, constructing speed cushions in the roadway, which are gentler forms of speed humps, narrowing lanes with striping or by physically narrowing the street, installing radar speed feedback signs, which is already in progress. Pedestrian improvement tools include installing enhanced crosswalk markings, constructing sidewalks, constructing raised crosswalks, installing rectangular rapid flashing beacons or RRFBs with crosswalks, and constructing corner bulb outs to reduce pedestrian exposure distances across intersections. Bicycle routes are classified according to the level of priority they give bicycles. Class 1 is a separate off-road path. Class 2 is an on-road bicycle lane that is striped and can be buffered with wider striping. Class 3 consists of markings in the road to inform motorists they will be sharing the lane with bicycles. Class 4 is an on-road Class 2 lane that also has a vertical separation between cars and bicycles. These pictures are examples of the 4 classes of bikeways. Class 1 off-road, Class 2 striped and striped with a buffer, Class 3 sharing the travel lane with bikes and cars, and Class 4 with either median or bollard vertical separation from cars. When choosing which tools to apply, considerations should include the durability of the improvement, whether the improvement needs police enforcement to be effective, the cost of the improvement, and the effectiveness of the improvement on intersection safety, managing speed, improving pedestrian access and safety, and enhancing bicycle safety. The costs of improvements vary widely. The number of dollar signs represents the relative cost of the intersection safety tools. This slide represents the relative costs of speed management tools. This slide represents the relative costs of pedestrian improvements tools. This slide represents the relative costs of bicycle improvements tools. Here's a slide that illustrates a combination of 2 strategies combined: all-way stops and enhanced crosswalks. Here's a slide that illustrates 2 high-end improvements, a roundabout at Alamo and a Class 4 bikeway along the north side of Haystack. This slide compares how the existing roadway, pictured at the top, could be reconfigured to provide a narrower roadway with a dedicated bikeway and a median, and narrower travel lanes to reduce speeds. The bottom exhibit shows how the roadway could be made narrower still by replacing the bikeway on the south side with a sidewalk, still maintaining the 3 lanes and parking on the south side of the street. That concludes our presentation. We would now like to know what you think.
Randy, you're muted.
Try to keep myself quiet. Thank you for listening to the presentation, the pre-recorded presentation by KOA, our consultant. We will post this to the website again, so for the folks that weren't able to attend the meeting today, that they'll be able to get up to speed. We have an unpre-recorded version of the PowerPoint that we can flip through the slides as a part of our discussion now, and we want to prompt your discussion by asking you, your impressions, your feedback on the tools that our consulting team has represented to us in the PowerPoint. I think bearing in mind that we have a range of potential tools in the toolbox to address the 4 elements of an improvement to Haystack Road, knowing that some elements are more complex or perhaps more costly, or may require more, say, speed enforcement collaboration by our police department. So we want to have a dialogue with you, a very organic conversation. And I will splice up the slides of the other version of the slideshow without the audio to help prompt our conversation. And I'd like to introduce our Charlie Schwinger with the KOA Corporation. He's our project manager and is going to help us facilitate our dialogue for the rest of the meeting. Thank you, Charlie. Okay. Thank you for your patience as I queue up the slides. So you can take yourself off mute or if you would prefer to type in a question in the chat box, we can do that. Thomas, you'll help keep tabs on the chat box for us. But I'd just like it to open up to the group for any questions, comments on what has been presented, and I can flip to the appropriate slide to help with your question or comments.
We have an initial question. Can the speed limit be lowered? Is that one of our options?
Sure, that's a very fair question. That was asked at the first meeting. Presently, the state of California prescribes how agencies manage the posted speed limit on roadways. The posted speed limits are based on gathering data along the roadway and taking a certain percentage of the 85th percentile of those recorded speeds. And as Charlie mentioned in the slideshow presentation, that the city's recent engineering speed study that was conducted last year indicated that there was that the existing speed limit of 45 was valid and remained as such. So what we're talking about here with the potential improvement to the roadway is creating friction to motorists to actually slow them down. And that's some of those traffic calming elements that Charlie presented in his PowerPoint presentation. So is it possible to lower speeds? Yes. How you do it is what we're craving your feedback on as we discuss the potential tools in the toolbox. So,
hey Randy, I'm gonna prime the pump. John Curran always has a thought. So let's make him share his thoughts and that'll get us going.
Thank you, Mayor, very much.
Well, unfortunately, we got here a little late. We're in Stockton, California, and we missed the whole beginning. So I will need to actually, I think, look at that proposal again. But anything that we can do to reduce the amount of high-speed traffic will be a blessing and a boon, especially at night. I mean, there's a noise at night.
I'm sorry,
It
John,
doesn't
you're breaking
bother
up.
pedestrians because there aren't any, but it wakes people up. During the day, I'm sorry?
You were breaking up a little bit, John, but I think we're following.
I was breaking up?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, I can't talk intelligently about the proposals, so I request permission to hold my fire until I see them.
No problem.
But thank you to Councilwoman Kelly for thinking of me.
No problem, John. The presentation is pre-recorded, and we will be posting that to the project website later this week. And so you'll be able to view it in its entirety. We're also going to be posting a survey to help prompt your feedback on the website. So www.haystackroad.com is the project website, John.
Okay, I will say I'm seeing that last photograph that says trim corner vegetation. That will work not just for Haystack, but for some of the side streets. We have one particular corner in my neighborhood that's been needing trimmed for some time. I just haven't complained about it.
John, do you recall what intersection that is?
Chia, hi Randy, it's Jan Buller. That's it, Chia, and at the frontage road. The frontage road coming from the south, north on, yeah, found in both cases. Chia,
Not the frontage road. Well, it is there. It's up on the other end.
by the light.
And also, right, if you're coming down Merritt to turn left, it sticks out in the view to make a left turn on Chia to go to Haystack.
Okay. Okay. We'll take a look at that location. We appreciate those insights.
Hey, Randy, with regards to speed mitigation, is it fair to say that while our hands may be tied to some extent about what speed limit is posted, that some of the other mitigations that we saw in the earlier slides, exactly whether it's roundabouts, crosswalks, lane reductions, stop signs, raised crosswalks, et cetera, would have the impact of reducing speed, even regardless of what the posted limit is? Isn't that part of the intent of those design options?
Yes, yes, council member, that's correct. That, like, the examples that you see on the screen right now are tools that are meant to help reduce the speeds of motorists. And what we do is, when we put these measures in place, whatever the measures will be, then we give traffic time to adjust to the measures, and then we'll go out and take another traffic study and measure those speeds. And what we'll be doing is, with the feedback signs that we're installing and have installed, they collect data. Now, they're not official data collection for an official traffic study, but they will be indicators to us as to how are we doing as we implement whatever tools the city decides to implement on the roadway.
So let's leave this picture here. Speed cushions usually evoke response either for or against. You know, Charlie very sweetly called them, I guess, softer versions of speed bumps, more benign versions of speed bumps. It would be great to hear from those of you on this call whether you think that's a good idea.
I thought that speed cushions are a great idea, that it would really cause people to slow down. If they went over it really fast once, they probably wouldn't do it again. And if they were at the intersections where there's cross streets like Alamo and Moon Trail, I think it could really help both the pedestrians and the cars speed. I see those intersections as being problems, and that if there were further lighting there, not only could cars find the turn for Alamo, but it would alert the drivers to the fact there's pedestrians maybe crossing the street. I am there in the evenings frequently every week, and it's kind of frightening to cross the street in the dark. You know, I just wait until there's no traffic at all. But those intersections are really dark.
Bill, thank you very much for that input. I can't remember if it was you or it was another resident that suggested that at the very least installing signs that forewarn motorists of where the intersections are as you approach the intersections, like the example that Charlie gave on the speed advisory sign, by posting that cross along with the speed as well as the name of the cross street. That is a pretty easy tool that could be implemented that gives folks a sense of that there's an intersection coming up.
That would be good. That'd be great.
Randy, John Curran asked if the speed study indicated whether the excess speed occurs in both directions or more from 74 toward Portola.
The speed study doesn't distinguish between either direction. It takes an average of the speeds. Thank you for asking that question, John.
It was actually Jan, but we're sitting here together.
Gotcha.
I do have a question about, did the proposals, and I apologize, but did they talk about potentially putting in traffic circles
So
as a
Charlie,
remedy?
thank you, John. Charlie, I'm going to ask you to pipe up here and earn your pay today. So talk to us about the roundabouts or traffic circles, and tell us about what you're seeing from your perspective in other communities.
You know, rather than just a small little decorative island in the middle of the street, what we envisioned was a compact urban roundabout. It's right size, so you don't really have to change the outside of the intersection. And of course, on the slide, you can see all the advantages of that type of roundabout, as well as reducing speeds and this crash severity. You know, it's also very beneficial for providing equal access for the traffic coming off the side streets. Entering the traffic that's actually in the roundabout has the right of way. So if you get there first from the side street, you have the right of way. And it's safer crossing for pedestrians because they cross behind vehicles that are waiting to get into the roundabout. And it keeps traffic flowing, unlike four-way stops where every single vehicle has to stop and people tend to run the stop signs if no one else is there. A roundabout, everyone knows what the rules are, and it's safer for pedestrians and for vehicles, and offers better traffic flow all the way around. So yeah, we did suggest that as one of the strategies that could be looked at and presented to the neighborhood.
Can you just, while you're talking, Randy, on this point, can you put up the other slide that actually showed the mock-up of one on, I think it was Alamo?
Sure thing.
And the question's been asked about which intersections have been discussed for roundabouts.
You know, it might be a little tedious if you had 3 of them in a row. I've been down streets before that have roundabout after roundabout after roundabout. I think Alamo certainly would be a candidate for that, and possibly one of the other streets then. So it could be one or more roundabouts, depending on how you want to approach it. You could also mix and match. Maybe you do a roundabout at Alamo, and then at Chia and Moon, you do always stops. So I think it's just one of the strategies that could be put into place, and really depends on input from the community, where that could happen.
Yeah, and I think too, we have to consider that is one of our more complex tools to implement in any toolbox for any neighborhood. The one thing that roundabouts do require is a larger footprint than your traditional intersection. And so if that is a feedback point we get from the community, we're going to be asking KOA to take a look at, well, what is the existing right-of-way at one or more of those intersections to make sure that a typical kind of a roundabout could be fit into an intersection or not. Some intersections may be tighter than others when it comes to right-of-way availability. But we believe that it is a tool that is worthy of discussion at this point in the project. I think if the feedback is sufficient enough, we'll take a deeper look at that and come back to the community and talk about feasibility, constructability, and quite frankly, you know, what are the dollar signs for the various types of tools that we're discussing today.
Randy, Rita has been waiting with her hand up patiently for a little while.
Thank you, Rita. Go ahead. Rita, can you take yourself off mute?
Nope.
Hope you just muted yourself. We're not hearing your audio, Rita. If you can type a question in the chat window, feel free to do that. Thomas, can you see anything in the chat window at the moment?
No, keeping an eye. But while we're waiting for that, we have another question. What about a crosswalk at Haystack and 74? People walk back and forth there. And I see John and Jan have their hand up as well.
Yeah, so the short answer on Haystack and 74, the city has, by a separate effort, but it's being coordinated with this study, an improvement to the intersection of Haystack and 74 that includes clarifying where are the crosswalks, where should pedestrians cross at that somewhat complex intersection, because as you know, it includes the frontage road. And we want to improve the safety for the users of that intersection, particularly pedestrians and bicyclists. So we are working on a design for improving and tweaking the operation of that intersection. John, you have your hand raised?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to comment. I've been in several cities in the world where England most notably has a lot of roundabouts. And I forget, I may think it was Mr. Sewell talked about driving down the street with one after the other after the other. We drove in Manchester, England, and I love roundabouts, except I don't like the way they work in Manchester. But we don't have that problem here. Although I think if there were, I don't know, 2 maybe on Alamo might be too much, but I think 1 would be really good, especially at our at Alamo and Haystack, because that's where, if they're coming up the hill from Portola, that's where they're attaining tide. And if they're coming off Haystack and tend to speed, that sends them a message right away. You need your seat under control. But I also, we were in Nairobi in 1999, and there's, I don't know, 2 million people in that city. And they have like 18 traffic lights, and traffic otherwise is managed roundabouts. And it was remarkable in that city and just not see congestion or confusion or accidents or anything, and hundreds of thousands of pedestrians, because many people have a car. So it was a really enlightening experience to travel through that city via roundabouts, to go from downtown to the suburbs and somewhere else, and then back down to a hotel in the center of town. It was a remarkable experience, just passing that on. And I'd like to see some if they're affordable. I understand they're the most costly, but they also look good, I think.
Thank you, John.
We have Rita's comments in the chat now. She mentions our slow down sign has not worked. Please put stop signs with LED lights at Chia and Alamo. And she also said that they've observed the most speeders are out between 6 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m., probably folks heading to and from work.
Okay, Rita, thank you very much. Appreciate you typing that in. Charlie, I'm going to put you on the spot again. I pulled up the slide on the concept illustrations for the 3 intersections on Haystack Road. Why don't you talk to our meeting attendees about what did you see at those intersections? Why did you splash these up on the screen as examples? And what level of thought have you put into this as an engineer?
Yeah, Randy, if you could go back up to where the intersection strategies are shown, we have a picture there of the sight distance being blocked on the corner by landscaping. Keep going. Let's see. There. If you look at the lower right picture, this is where you would normally stop. If you were looking to the west, and I forget which intersection this is, it might be Alamo. If you're looking to the west, you can see just fine. But if you're looking to the east, you have landscaping right up basically to the edge of the road. You get up further, you have mailboxes, you have cars parked there. So even though you may not have the traffic volumes that would suggest you should have a multi-way stop, you have a severe sight distance issue at these intersections. And hence, we included the stop signs, all-way stop signs in the toolbox because of the sight distance.
Now, give it just the briefest of overviews of what must you address? look at a multi-way stop, because I think this is an opportunity for us to be reminded about, do we just put them in anywhere we want to, or are we guided? Are there rules that we have to follow about stop signs?
Yes, the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices has had very strict warrants on when you could put in multi-way stops, because stop signs, if they're not warranted, tend to be ignored, just like speed limit signs. People will ignore speed limit signs. If the road says drive me fast, they will drive fast. And if motorists perceive, why am I stopping here? There's no traffic, they tend to run stop signs. So they've had rather strict warrants on, you've got to have equal volumes and from all sides of the intersection, and it needs to meet a certain threshold. Well, they've expanded that definition to include more considerations, and one of those is whether you can safely pull out from the side street onto the through roadway. And if you can't, in other words, if you're pulling out and an oncoming car really doesn't have an opportunity to even stop before hitting you, then all-way stops can be considered. So that's why we have included that in the toolbox. And again, this is typical, and those of you who pull onto Haystack from the side streets see this every time you do.
Thank you, Charlie. John, I think you've raised your hand.
Yes, I'd like to thank Charlie for showing that picture, because I would say that 80% of the time when I leave my house and go to Haystack, I come to that very intersection. And that the view eastbound is the vegetation, and even that mailbox is a problem. And looking the other way, this summer, there have been a lot of, I guess, some home repairs and remodeling and things going on the houses to the west of that intersection. And there are big pickup trucks and delivery vehicles parked pretty close to that intersection. And you have to stick your nose out a long way into the thoroughfare to see if anybody's coming from 74. And I've been here it's almost 6 years, never seen it as bad as it is this year at that intersection. Thank you.
And I just want to agree with John on that. That intersection, if there's anyone parked on the west side there, forget trying to get out. You sort of inch out a little bit, but then someone's flying down the road, and I'm surprised there haven't been more accidents.
Emily, thank you very much. And just I'm taking notes here. This is particularly Chia, or this is Alamo?
It's Alamo.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Alamo.
And Randy,
Yeah.
Another Randy asked, similar to this, is there a specific solution suggested for more safety in residents exiting their driveways on Haystack?
So Charlie, I'm going to turn this over to you, but I'm going to tee it up for you. I think that's one data point that we heard at the first meeting, and perhaps even with some of the feedback after the first community meeting, was, I live on Haystack. I don't even feel comfortable. I think this one resident actually said, I don't feel comfortable backing out onto the roadway. I back into my driveway. So let's talk about the tools that are in our toolbox, Charlie, that can improve the safety for the folks that are entering or leaving the roadway from their driveways.
Randy, would you go to the typical sections? Is near the end. I think the real key is we have to slow the traffic down on Haystack Road. And you can do that by narrowing. Right now, you've got over 60 feet of roadway that's basically wide open. And if you look at the bottom slide and imagine, instead of on the left side next to the bikeway, if you can imagine that as a raised median instead of a striped median with bollards, then what you have is you've got a sidewalk on one side, you've got parking, which is usually you have something parked. And all of a sudden, instead of 60 feet of pavement, you have closer to 33 feet of pavement. So all of a sudden, the roadway is narrower, people are going to slow down more. and we've narrowed the lanes. So if you're driving next to a parked car in an 11-foot lane, you're going to tend to slow down. You're going to tend to shy towards the middle. So I think that's really the key. It also gives, when you put in the 5-foot sidewalk, particularly on the west of Alamo, you put in that sidewalk, you have more sight distance as you're backing out of the driveway. Now you've got, if the back end of your car is, say, where the parked car is, the red parked car, you're more where the people are with your eyesight, and you're gonna be able to see up the road better. So I think the real key is slowing people down by actually physically narrowing the roadway.
Thank you, Charlie. Thomas, do we have any other comments in the chat box?
We just got one. There's no sidewalk on the south side of Haystack from Portola to about Chia. Is that being discussed?
Yeah, Charlie, why don't you discuss your team's thoughts on sidewalks?
You know, right now, again, we have a change of cross section there. I think it's a little more difficult because you don't have as much roadway to work with. You do have some shoulder way, which is being used for bicycles. There's a potential of putting in, if you shifted the roadway alignment further to the north, you've got the potential putting in some kind of a wider shared path, a 10-foot path along the south side, which could be used by bikes and by pedestrians. So that's one option. But if that's of interest, that's something that we could look at closer.
Carol, you raised your
Yeah,
hand.
I would just like to say that since I walk there all year long, the south side has absolutely no shade. And if you're on the north side, there is some shade and you can walk into the grass area there, which is what people that are walking want to do. So if you're walking on the south side, it really wouldn't be attractive it might be attractive to people moving out of their driveways, but for any walker, for those of us that are permanent in the summer, you know, you want to be on the grassy area in the shade of the trees. And if you're out early enough in the morning, you get shade from the trees, even on the sidewalk. So please think about that. The south side is very undesirable.
Thank you, Carol, very much. Other thoughts about sidewalk accommodation along the roadway? Emily, is your hand raised? Oh, can you take?
Yeah, it is raised. Not about the sidewalks, but I really like the idea of seeing more crosswalks along there. On the one hand, I'm really supportive of it. On the other hand, I'm concerned if we just throw the crosswalks out there, it's going to give pedestrians a false sense of security. Just assuming I'm in a crosswalk, they'll stop. And I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen, but it would be nice to have specific places where people could cross safely.
Yeah, very, very good points, Emily. We don't want to create a false sense of security for folks. And that's one of the problems with, say, striping out a crosswalk that you've not properly signed or put up other tools that highlights the presence of a crosswalk. Charlie, we had a conversation about mid-block crosswalks versus crosswalks at intersections. And why don't you share your team's thoughts about the use of crosswalks, and particularly their location?
When you have a mid-block crosswalk, it's oftentimes unexpected. Whereas if you have a crosswalk at an intersection, particularly with a stop sign, people are going to expect that they have to stop. It's a fairly long section, but you do have three intersections coming from the south and 2 intersections coming from the north. So there is potential to have controlled crosswalks at those intersections, which is really preferable. If you do cross mid-block, and the photo in the upper right happens to be where a bike trail runs along a creek and crosses a 5-lane roadway. And it was primarily put in for the bicycles for that reason, because you come up to the end of the trail and where you go. But it has an RRFB there. And I've personally been there and pressed the button and about been run over just trying to step out in front of cars, because they, even though it's very bright, they're thinking, hey, I'm driving 40, 45 miles an hour. I don't want to stop for you. So I think that's the risk in putting something in mid-block. I don't know, Randy, if you have more to add to that.
Yeah, thank you. I know at our last community meeting that somebody, and forgive me, I can't remember who brought it up, the mid-block crosswalks that we installed with the demonstration project on El Paseo. I think one word or one phrase I hear a lot in the design community for transportation is context sensitivity. And we've achieved a good deal of success in improving safety and reducing some speeds on El Paseo at those two mid-block crosswalks. First off, because the speeds already are lower on that roadway. It's a more compact roadway. There's a lot of visual envelope, the buildings, the landscaping, that drivers already tend to drive slower. Here on Haystack Road, it's a different story. It's a very wide open roadway, and motorists just naturally want to speed down the roadway. I call it a runway because it just feels like you could land a jet on this roadway. It's so wide and without any friction on the roadway. So I think we'd have to be very careful about installing a mid-block crosswalk, even with an RRFB on a roadway such as Haystack, because just like Charlie said, I think people are going to be driving 45 or faster and just don't want to stop. It's a friction point, a stopping point that they might not want to abide by. So I think having the crosswalks cross Haystack at a controlled intersection, either at a roundabout or a traffic circle or at a multi-way stop, would probably be a safer situation for the pedestrians. This is great feedback we're getting, and I appreciate folks talking and discussing and asking questions.
Randy, we have another comment in the chat.
Very good. And then we also have John's hand raised. Why don't we do the chat question first?
Okay, Randy says, allowing parking on the south side of Haystack while narrowing the roadway and perhaps slowing speeds also has the effect of cars and drivers being very close to one another as a driver enters or exits their parked vehicle.
Charlie, why don't you help respond to that point?
Well, that's a true statement, and I drive on streets frequently where there is parked vehicle, where there are parked vehicles and people getting in and out, and it's scary for me as a driver, particularly if it's dark and someone steps out. And I tend to drive those streets hugging the center turn lane as a result. I don't know that all drivers do that. Some people, I think, probably put on blinders, but I think that's a very valid point and a concern.
Thanks, Charlie. John, you had your hand raised?
This is Jan. It was actually my hand. I'm really liking a lot of the ideas that you're sharing with us today. Some really good-looking options that can help us up here a whole lot. My put you on the spot question is, how quick can we get this stuff?
Sure, that's always a fair question. Always a fair question. So as we've demonstrated, like ordering and installing speed feedback signs is something that is relatively easy. The tool tends to be something that vendors have in stock, and it doesn't require a whole lot of field coordination. They have to make sure when they install a post, they don't punch through a water line or a gas line or something that's underground. But it was something that was fairly easy for us to install. So in our experience with calming traffic and improving safety of roadways, I'm talking as I'm going backwards. Some of these tools are less complex, less expensive, don't require as much design effort, don't have to worry as much about underground utility conflicts. Some of them are easy to do than others. Speed cushions, the speed limit sign markings, and even the lane narrowing are also, all of these are fairly simple and straightforward to implement. As I've already said, a roundabout is probably the most complex tool that's in our toolbox today because of the major design effort, the construction. You have to think about how you drain it so you don't have water ponding, all these things that make it a more complex tool to install. Signage such as the examples that are on this screen are typically in stock, and we can get those things installed right away. In a typical approach to working to reduce speeds to improve safety, communities tend to adopt an iterative approach. What's the low-hanging fruit? What are the near-term improvements that could be done, either because they're simpler to build or they're more bang for the buck to install, while maybe the community considers the more complex, longer-term solutions. So I think when we come back to you in September, I think we're going to give you a better sense of, say, a recommended approach to how we address these 4 issues on the roadway: calming traffic, reducing speeds, improving the intersection safety, and addressing pedestrian and bicycle safety and accommodation. I think we'll give you a sense of not just the $3 signs like you see on Airbnb or Open Table, but rather also what is easier or sooner to construct. Now, that said, I think we've said in the meetings, once we get the feedback from the community, our next step is to go to City Council, present the results of this study effort, and ask for their direction, and also discuss the budget for the improvements. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's probably an approach of some near-term improvements versus longer-term improvements. And I think the size of the dollars and the speed at which these things could be installed, I hope to give some insights to the community when we come back to you in 60 days' time.
Thanks.
Jan, yeah, Jan, I'm going to give you the quick and non-politic answer, and that is not anytime soon. As Randy said, the simple measures, yes, but even striping a crosswalk, if I can use Haystack and 74 as an example, those of you who've lived there for a while recall that we had a crosswalk there. We lost it when we did the re-landscaping, and getting it back has turned into a monumental project, which is underway. But, you have to put out, because it has to be ADA compliant, there's engineering that goes into it. So you put out an RFP, which takes time for the engineering. And then somebody wins, and then they do the engineering, and you have to put out an RFP for the construction. And it just goes on and on. I've really pushed, and I'll tell you, it is not staff's fault. Our staff is outstanding, but they are encumbered by a whole host of processes and regulations that they have to follow. So simple things, yeah, sure, that's not a problem. But you get into something that even seems simple but isn't, and all of a sudden you're talking about, well, just take a look at how long we're still waiting for a crosswalk at 74 in Haystack. It takes time.
Thanks. Good perspective.
Sorry, I wish I could give you the answer that you and I both want to hear, but it's better to be truthful and realistic.
Randy, we have a couple comments in the chat, or a question. Rita Wood asks, with the wonderful sidewalks full length on north side of Haystack, is there really a need for sidewalks on the south side too?
That certainly is a fair question to ask. Charlie, when we were discussing, potential cross changes to the roadway cross section, the benefits, the perceived benefits of adding a sidewalk to the south side was certainly absorbing the existing real estate and narrowing the footprint of the roadway to narrow those lanes to get the motorists to drive more slowly. But why don't we talk about the pros and cons that you see, that your team sees about the prospects of a sidewalk along the south side of the roadway, particularly given the input we're hearing today at the meeting.
A sidewalk on the south side of the roadway primarily benefits the people who live on Haystack, because if you live mid-block somewhere and you come out of your door and you want to walk to on the north side in the shade, you kind of look both ways and you walk to the middle and hope no one pulls into the center lane, and you look the other way again and continue to get over to the north side. The advantage of the sidewalk is that you can go down to a controlled crosswalk. As part of your walk, you walk along the south side of Haystack, go to a controlled intersection, cross on the crosswalk that's designated there, and then can continue in the park with the shade. I see that as really the major benefit, apart from narrowing the roadway, is that it provides access. Now, some of the section already has a sidewalk, and so that's something that's already in place. But I recall one of the comments from the first meeting was someone had mentioned that they have to walk in the roadway unless they're going to try and troop through people's yard and their landscaping. They have to walk in the roadway in order to get to a place where they can cross safely.
Thomas, did you say we have another question in the chat box?
Yeah, Carol also asked, is there a new movement among Haystack homeowners who are voicing concerns about backing out of their driveways?
If that question is to staff, I think we heard one or two comments at the community meeting number 1 back in May. Charlie, we might have heard another comment from somebody in an email that we received after that meeting, but I think it was a fairly limited number. Correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie.
You know, that's what I recall. I think all the different topics that we listed, some of them had multiple people. Other topics maybe only had one person or two people mention them, but we included them because if we had 20 people at the meeting and there are, I don't know, 200 that could be, maybe we use a factor of 10 to measure, okay, what are the concerns? So, but I think you're right on that, Randy. It was one or two people.
Thanks, Charlie. Thomas, any other questions in the chat box?
We have one other comment from Linda. If I'm looking at it correctly, some of the illustrations show the loss of parking on the north side of Haystack. If that's correct, I would be disappointed to see that happening. Lots of people use that side for parking.
I would ask Charlie what his team observed when they conducted their field checks and data collection on Haystack Roadway, plus others that are present in the meeting today. If you can also share your observations about the use of parking on the north side of the roadway. Appreciate your input and your feedback on that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Again, we did a drive-by survey several times just to see, okay, where were people parking? They were parking on the south side. We didn't observe the parking on the north side, but if that really occurs, it's important that we know that.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. I can say on my drive-throughs during the business day, I'm not seeing much utilization of the parking that's along the north side of the roadway. But that's during the business hours. And of course, we have weekends and we have weeknights. And certainly I would appreciate residents sharing their observations about parking utilization, particularly at night and on the weekends. John, can I put you on the spot? John or Jan?
I have a comment on that, Randy. This is Jan. I think that in the summer, it's absolutely right. People don't park much because there's not all that much walking in the greenway, in my experience, except in the early morning hours, often by locals. In the more moderate times of year, we often have people coming from other places to walk their dogs in the greenway or just to take advantage of the good walking there and the green space. And frequently they do park at on the north side. So I think that's more for people coming in from other areas than for locals, but that would be a consideration for how that area is used.
Okay, okay. So Jen, what I think I heard you say was there tends to be a seasonality to the use of the parking on the north side. During a peak season when it is more in use, do you have a sense of, say, time of the week or time of day or that you see more cars parked there?
My own experience, we often tend to walk late in the day during that during the cooler months, do sunset walks. And that, in my own experience, is when I see more people on the north side and coming out to take advantage of the evening hours. Now, I've heard from other people on the call today who are walkers, who may have a completely different perspective and could tell you something quite different. Would be good to hear from them as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. Emily, I saw you shaking your head. Do you have any other input or feedback to give us?
I just agree with her completely. I think during the season, and Jan, the funny thing is I was gonna say, oh, it's in the morning, because whenever I'm out in the mornings during the season, there's a ton of people parking there. So yeah, it might just be, it comes in cycles throughout the day.
Okay, thank you. I'm making a note. Thomas, do we have other questions or comments in the chat box?
No more questions, and I see that we're kind of coming to the end of our time, so we probably want to encourage people to continue interacting with our website.
Absolutely. I've been keeping my eye on the clock too. We don't want to take too much of people's time, but this is certainly something that's important to the community, and we want to give folks ample opportunity. So let's dial forward. What we will do is take a recording of the meeting today, as well as the pre-recorded presentation that Charlie gave. We'll post those to the website. So in your leisure on the weekends, you can re-listen and listen to the presentations to your heart's desire, and take what you're hearing and the thoughts that you develop, and you'll be able to give further feedback through the website. I think Charlie is putting together a survey to prompt your feedback, so we can organize it and use that as another input as we proceed into community meeting number 3, which again will be scheduled for September. And at that meeting, we will bring back to you the results of the consultants' efforts in light of today's feedback on the different tools, plus the feedback that we get after today's meeting. And we will add some feasibility, some constructability, a sense of cost to the various tools that seem to be rising to the top as interest to the community and to the city. We'll bring that back to you. Probably we'll have some additional renderings so we see things in the context of the existing roadway. And we'll again crave your feedback, ask for your feedback, wrap this up, and then we'll be discussing this with City Council. This is what we've heard during the course of the study. These are the recommendations from the consultant team and staff and the community, and then ask for direction as well as discuss funding opportunities for the future and a sense of timing. So unless we have any go backs or any last minute chat dialogue or raised hands, I think we'll conclude today's meeting. I do have one from Emily. So Emily, you're last up. And oh, no, we have one from Thomas too. So we'll take 2 more, and then I think we'll conclude today's meeting. Emily, you're up.
I just wanted to say, that's my husband, mute yourself.
You're echoing it.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you guys, and how good it felt when I drove down Haystack and saw those speed feedback signs. It was like, oh my gosh, and I would love to see if that helped at all, but just knowing that you're listening and that you're doing this process, that was great progress, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Thomas, you've raised your hand.
Yeah. The only comment I wanted to make is when we were looking at some of the diagrams for, the 3-way and the 4-way stops, for the people who live right on those corners with those stops, they're going to be negatively, it's going to be a negative for them because cars tend to accelerate really quickly and it will become noisier and, of course, less desirable for them. So I know it's a smaller subset of people, but I mean, if you're right on one of those corners of Chia or Alamo and people are stopping right in front of your house and then taking off, that's going to have a negative impact for those folks.
Thomas, thank you very much for your input on that. Yes, you may hear some more engine noise. I think you have to balance that out against the potential gains from, say, that kind of a tool that, to promote safer crossings for the neighborhood too. But that's a valid concern, and Charlie has taken notes, and we'll certainly factor that into what we bring back to the community in about 60 days' time. Well, with that, thank you everybody for your time today. We're concluded on today's community meeting number 2. And again, www.haystackroad.com. Check in the website frequently and often and register your emails. And also you will be able to continue contributing your feedback online. Thank you very much and see you in September.